Pod Candy!
A podcast about cults, crimes, and killers. Stay tuned for a very, very cool bonus episode of Pod Candy. Today, we're giving you a mashup of some of our favorite clips from past episodes about killers.
Outside my window, it's only raining. When the wind blows, I feel pain. I don't need no doctor, baby, I'm not sick. My body's been locked up, heartbroken ever since.
In this episode, we're stepping into the rotting farmhouse of one of the most terrifying figures in American true crime history, Ed Gein.
To the people of Plainfield, Wisconsin, Ed was a quiet, if slightly off handyman. But when police entered his home in 1957, they uncovered a scene straight out of a nightmare. Bowls made from skulls, chairs upholstered in human skin, and a suit stitched together from the flesh of a dead woman that he admitted to wearing. Yum!
What drove him to such depravity? The answer in part lies with his mother, Augusta Gein, a fanatically religious woman who preached that women were instruments of the devil. She kept Ed isolated from the world, feeding him guilt, shame, and fear like it was holy scripture. When she died, something inside him snapped.
And Ed didn't just kill, he collected. Most of his gruesome trophies came not from murder, but from graves he robbed under the cover of night. He wasn't just obsessed with death. He wanted to be someone else entirely. Someone who could bring his mother back. Someone who could silence the demons she planted in him.
His crimes shocked the nation and inspired some of the most infamous monsters in pop culture. But the real Ed Gein? He was far more terrifying than any movie villain. You know, this story, first of all, he lived in a farmhouse with his mother, Augusta, his father, who died earlier on, and his brother, Henry, who also died in a fire, mysteriously, I should add, in my opinion.
And other opinions.
When they found Henry after this fire, he had marks on him that seemed to appear that he didn't die just from asphyxiation from fire, but also from, murder, possibly. So as we know, Ed Gein only killed, that we know of, 2 women. And in my opinion as well, he simulated his mother out of the skin of these women, created a human suit so he could literally be her. What do you think of that, Dori?
I think that I would never wear a flesh suit.
Why?
So yes, this definitely all stems from, and when we bring out the doctor, we can talk to him about this, but yes. The mother was extremely religious and really kept the 2 boys from ever socializing. Women were terrible. You can't have a lot of friends or any friends, and really kept them so isolated, where Henry, the older brother, went out and started really questioning what was going on. And maybe there is a world, but Ed stayed so devout to his mother, and she was his life. I also thought, for me, another controversial statement, but I enjoyed the fact that when his mother died and he went to the cemetery to dig up other ladies, they were age appropriate ladies. They weren't like young dames that he was going after. He was digging up all these women, and the two women that he murdered were also older ladies.
Yep.
Again, obviously, the Oedipus mom complex that he has. But with all the Ted Bundys of the world, I was actually like, huh, Ed Gein,
Yeah.
just
It's
after the oldies. Good for you.
He's just a mama's boy at heart.
Just
So was he in love with his mom, or did he just feel like he needed to be inside of her womb?
yeah.
What was it?
I don't know. I mean, honestly, I think probably both. Like if there's
Mhm.
one person that isolated you, you know, and you're the only, that's the only person in your life day after day.
Doctor,
I've been waiting in the wings here. Should I come in here now?
You can come from behind the curtain,
Thank,
Dr. John.
thank you for having me back. I was nervous
Oh.
about getting fired from this gig here. You know, not that I need another gig in my life, but
you don't. I guess a big question for me, and sorry, Dori, if I'm cutting you off, because I have a lot. This might take a second session of us asking you questions, but how did Ed, how was a person able to turn off the gross factor and do these things without being nauseated or disgusted? Like, how do you turn that off? How does somebody go into, is it like when you're a Nazi and you just do things without thinking, you shoot? I mean, what is that mentality?
Two different concepts. You know, we can get into
Yeah.
Nazis maybe in some future episode because they were following orders. Ed was following his own orders and his own view. If there's one big advance that I have given the field about these killers, it's that the only way we can get to really understand them is we have to get into their worldview, which most sane people would say it's crazy. But what is crazy? Crazy is defined by social norms, how everybody else behaves. And that answers your question, Stacey, is that how could he do that? He saw nothing wrong in doing it. Look at when he was arrested and he goes, yeah, kind of meek and mild. Yeah, I did all these things, you know. There was no, anger or hate. And if I can take off for a second, I think that's
what I mean.
That's a huge part of what you guys were talking about, is that he didn't do these things with hate.
Right.
You know, he did not do it. What we see in, especially like spree killers, there's a whole difference between these serial killers and spree killers. The spree killers or shooters, etc. They hate. There's something they hate. They hate humanity. Look at that Maggione kid. It's he hated this executive, and he hated the healthcare system and insurance, etc. Notice the difference between Ed and what he did. He didn't do these things to hate, and in fact, it was almost like they were trophies, and he elevated things. So that's key. We have, again, it's all about getting into his worldview. And one last thing, and I'll want to get your comments. How can a person do this? We often forget, both of you and our audience, that at the core, we're animals. If you go through history, and this is where history is a great teacher, there's some really brutal things that society did. In early England, I forget the dates, but people would walk around London with knives and swords, and randomly a person would just stab another person, often for no reason. We're pretty primitive, and Ed is a very primitive guy. But again, it's animalistic, it's base activity, it's not sophisticated activity. That's where he's not part of the norm.
But I think that there's also question, you mentioned like the spree versus serial, but is Ed Gein a true serial killer? I don't know if he is, because he killed and I don't know what to be honest, I really don't know like what the difference is. And was there psychosis? Was he schizophrenic?
Yes.
Was he, or did he didn't kill before the mother, like we said. So can you talk a little bit about that?
I'm
What
dying to
you
talk
think
about that. I'm dying to talk about that because you brought this up earlier, Dori. And the question of why did he start to kill after his mother died? Well, I think the death of his mother gave him freedom to do what he did. Now, we always see a progression of violence in these people. So much of the material we have on Ed doesn't talk about his early years. I would suspect that he killed animals. We all suspect, especially from all the data we have, he probably killed his brother. And that was a tipping point for him. That was a point where I can do this. And then when mom dies, boom, the doors are open.
Sky's the limit.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I think mom's death was permission more than anything else. And another thing you guys brought up, and I want to get into real quick before I lose the thought, and that is he psychotic? Yeah, he's a crazy man, no question. And we get that evidence from the brother. I mean, even though we have this absolute also crazy mom, we have a brother who is relatively, normal as much as we can say. So there was something going on with Ed inherently. We call it functional, that there was a mental illness going on, guaranteed. But there's plenty of people out there walking the streets with mental illness and, working and having families, etc., that don't kill. So there's a lot of things that contribute here.
I'm going to say something very controversial.
Okay.
The photos that they showed in the documentary of Ed Gein, I thought he was kind of a looker. I'm not going to lie. I was like, this guy.
He was cute. Kind of cute.
I would not swipe left. I would swipe right.
Today, we're looking at the case of Keith Hunter Jesperson, better known as the Happy Face Killer.
Jesperson was a long-haul truck driver who murdered at least 8 women between 1990 and 1995. He got the nickname because he signed letters to police and media with a hand-drawn smiley face.
His first known victim was Tanya Bennett in Oregon. Another couple falsely confessed to her murder, which frustrated Jesperson enough to start writing anonymous confessions, first on bathroom walls, then in letters.
Those letters revealed specific details only the killer would know. He wanted to take credit and control the narrative. That need for recognition was a major part of his psychology.
His job made him hard to trace. He traveled constantly, and many of his victims were women living on the margins, often not identified for years.
Jesperson was arrested in 1995 after confessing to the murder of his girlfriend. He eventually admitted to several more killings and is serving multiple life sentences.
It's a disturbing case, not just because of the violence, but because of how long he operated before being caught.
It's a case that reminds us how easily violence can hide in plain sight. I think that this is the type of thing, and I believe I've said this before, that keeps me away from going back on dating apps, because this is like a dude who was very large in stature, but kind of unassuming, right? Like he wasn't like somebody that was like doing a lot in his life. He was married for years. He had some kids, but he wasn't like known for like murdering as a younger fella. I'll say fella, right?
Yeah.
So like, but these are the type of guys, like he's in a bar, he meets these women, and they fall. He must have some sort of magnetism that
I
these
mean, he was
women.
cute. He was a little
He
cute.
was cute. He was cute.
Huge
Yeah, real
hands.
yeah,
Huge hands.
What does that say about him, Stacey? Huge
Well,
hands.
huge feet. Huge
Exactly.
nose.
That's how. Yeah,
Huge.
maybe huge nose.
Oh, I hear where you're going with that.
But you know what I'm saying? Like, women were like, this guy must have some sort of
mojo.
Of mojo.
Well, he said that he would say, well, she wanted a party. So, she wanted a party, so we went out. And, I told her twice, not to do that. And on the third time, I just strangled her.
Like
where's the line? Yeah, but it's like, she didn't listen twice. So on the third time, I killed her. And then he stepped on her neck and then he threw her. And this caused a lot of pain for a lot of families. And it also felt like Keith was trying to, get his, as they said in the documentary, 15 minutes of fame. He's writing this on the bathroom walls. He's tempting people. And it's interesting when something is that obvious. And it reminds me a little bit of Patrick Bateman in American Psycho. It's like, I'm the killer. Oh, no, you're not. It's like that, like, no, I love that like whole storyline of like him trying to confess and having people be like, no, we don't think no, Paul's living in London, this guy's trying to confess with the smiley face. And yet the confession from the guy it was still not solid proof. They did a handwriting analysis later, but you know what I mean? It's like, that's not solid proof, but what kind of person does it take to also want to kind of confess? Like, I don't even know if he was trying to confess. He sounded just like messy.
I mean, I honestly think we should bring Dr. John in.
Yeah, I think it's time.
I think it's time because a lot of these, we have so many questions about this, and this was Dr. John's suggestion to watch this, to watch this one. So let's. Drum roll, please. Let's bring in the doctor. The doctor is in.
Yeah, here he is.
Well, thank you. I'm opening the door from the green room and have been anxious, in particular, with this episode to come in because I so echo, Dori, what you're saying about, this is kind of mundane in a way. And I don't know if I was enthralled. I think, audience, be enthralled because this is the type of killers that are out there. What we get fed by the media and movies is, these sensational plots and sensational killing and this cat and mouse game of finding these people. And I think that was another kind of blasé part about this is that this guy kind of just showed up as you were just saying, oh, I'm the killer. Hey, everybody, killer. But I refute a couple of things on the documentary kind of highlighted, which I think you both fell into, and that is this whole thing of the fame. I don't think he showed any interest in fame at all, other than he was dumb. He was stupid and socially what should I say, socially inept, with sending a letter to his high school reunion after he confessed and been proven and sentenced to all these killings, sort of like, gee, remember me? How come nobody's paying attention? This is the unique thing about Mr. Jesperson here in this episode. These women all triggered something in him. If you look at the killings, like the one, I wrote it down here. Someone said something about don't do this or I don't want to do it, or the one with she wanted $40 more. She was clearly a prostitute. And that triggered something. And each murder triggered something which he acted upon. So you're exactly right. And I take that back. It was not methodical. It was very spontaneous. And that was the other thing about, this case, which I think is important and maybe different from a lot of the killers and serial killers and mass murderers we talk about, is he wasn't a hunter. he wasn't hunting to kill, as like Ed Gein or someone like that. It just kind of came upon him, and most of the time it was a sexual interaction, again showing his social inept. He was in these sexual situations, and then something went terribly wrong, and often it was a little thing. And I'll look up what I wrote down, the quote from this one. I think it was from Tanya. It said something, a key phrase, and oh, she said, "Come on, can you just get it over with?" And boom, he blew up.
Again, I think that and forgive me, because I feel like I am kind of just, again, hell-bent on this with the wife. And yes, you're right. Like, she probably didn't want to be on this because she's probably just trying to live her life and she doesn't, want to be bothered by this. But like, he didn't snap with her. And I'm sure, and they did say she was submissive and all of that. But like, as with your patients, or you dealing with this a lot, like, why later in life would he start why would these things trigger him later in life, but it didn't with girlfriends and his wife before that,
Oh, because here's a key fact, and it may sound very simplistic or fundamental. I think in his home environment, he was controlled. That's why it wasn't early on, whether it was family control. Remember, he was controlled by a very strict father and maybe an abusive father. And I think being in the family environment and also his own marital environment put some controls on him. But where did all these murders occur? He was on the road as a over the road truck driver. Freedom. I'm not controlled by this umbrella of people that are watching me, and I can't do this. That's another key aspect of this whole case, which I think to me is enthralling. You both talked about that Laverne and John, I can't pronounce his last name, John S., that confessed to the murders. And what a bizarre situation that was. Laverne,
the Laverne,
to get back at this 18 year younger than her boyfriend. And so she frames him for the Happy Face murders. I think that's bizarre, but she ends up in prison as well, sort of like, gotcha.
She was happy about it. Her daughter was like, she was happy that she was protected.
Yeah.
So that the boyfriend couldn't hurt her anymore.
Wow. That was an interesting twist to this whole thing. And then the other thing I thought was, I don't know how both of you reacted to this. I'm curious. They showed Laverne getting out of prison, and everybody's happy and hugging her and all this. And I don't know, something hit me strange about that. If you're a relative who gets out of prison after X number of years or decades and coming out of jail, it just seems so loving and embracing. I don't know, maybe that says something about me. I think I'd be a little more standoffish,
Wait a second. I think we need to I think, Stacey, we need to be the doctors. Wait a second. You're saying that Laverne and her loved ones were too loving on her, or that Laverne was too hugging with them, whereas if you, John, got out of prison, you would be like, whoop, to your wife and to your kids, hey, pause off, everybody. I just got out of prison. I want some time alone. I need some time to myself.
Yeah, I think I would. I think I'd be a little shy and like, am I really accepted here? But you came out of prison bursting out and everybody's hugging and kissing her.
Yeah, interesting.
I'm
not sure how I feel about that. I'm sort of on the fence. I mean, maybe she smelled bad. I don't know.
Yeah, right. I don't know. Could have been.
But
family would be very happy to see me and my friends, and I would be very happy as well. So the fact that both of you pondered this is actually shocking to me.
I didn't really ponder
somebody, Dori, if you, now that I, know you and consider you a friend, I'll be there when you get out of prison, but
I'm not going to hug you.
I'm not going to be hugging you real tight. I'm sorry.
Eileen, or Lee Warnos, was a sex worker who murdered 7 men in Florida between 1989 and 1990, claiming each killing was an act of self-defense against clients who had assaulted or attempted to rape her. Born into poverty, abandonment, and abuse, Warnos lived a transient life marked by violence and survival on society's margins. Her crimes, arrest, and trial drew intense media attention, framing her alternately as a cold-blooded killer and a victim of lifelong exploitation. In 2002, she was executed by lethal injection, but her story continues to raise questions about trauma, gender, justice, and the ways society decides who is beyond redemption. Netflix's new documentary revisits one of the most notorious names in American crime, Eileen Warnos.
A woman whose story has been twisted and retold for decades, from mugshots and headlines to the word monster.
But this series strips away the mythology. It forces us to look at the person beneath the crimes, a life built on abandonment, abuse, and survival. A child discarded long before the murders ever began.
It asks uncomfortable questions. What creates someone like Eileen? How much of her story is choice and how much is circumstance?
Because this isn't just about the violence she committed. It's about the violence she endured, about the cycle that never seems to end for women society decides are unworthy of empathy.
It's a story about power, pain, and the thin, shifting line between victim and predator.
This is Eileen, Queen of the Serial Killers. The documentary we watched, I felt very sorry for her. And I am not saying what she did was okay or right or good, taking somebody's life, taking somebody's husband, partner, father, brother, whatever, away from them is obviously not the right answer. But this woman had no chance. No chance.
Yeah, I think I texted you right after I watched it, and I expressed the exact same sentiment. I feel bad for her. It's, somebody who has lived a life where they have been abused their whole entire life by men, by women, and really, really difficult abuse, like difficult sexual, obviously mental abuse too. But really, it sounded like really strong, like physical abuse.
So when I was little, I was adopted by my grandmother and grandfather. My grandmother was really clean and decent, did not swear, did not drink. She was into Jesus Christ. Grandfather was a sergeant in World War II. He was very stringent, but he was not nasty. A very decent, moral upbringing. At around probably 14, my grandmother died from cirrhosis of the liver. I always miss her, and I'll always love her. At around 15, I ran away from home. I got caught, went to Adrian's training school for 6 months. When I got out, I hit that road and I split from the state. On the road 24/7 for 4 years, nonstop. I must have been raped, I'd say about 30 times, maybe more. I was gang raped twice when I was a kid by my high school friends. My high school friends, man.
Not condoning that you should be murdering people, but I got it. Like, the system really failed her. Life failed this woman. And I think we should both say, like, this was not my favorite documentary. I think you agree with that, right? Like, it's the way that it was made. It was just,
I couldn't tell if all those clips were actually Eileen Wuornos.
Yeah.
And Tyree,
the lover,
her girlfriend, her lover. Yeah. I couldn't tell. And I was like, why are they doing all this juxtaposed thing? Then there was like talking over talking.
It was all very choppy.
It was choppy.
It was hard to follow. But I think that the reason why I feel maybe compassion towards her is when, she went through this trial, and it was obvious with the prosecutor that he was just out to get her, and then he was running for office, and there was no true listening to her. This is he didn't allow all the evidence to be supported that she was attacked, that she, that one of the guys was raping her. Maybe the doctor has some answers. Should we
bring him in?
Let's bring him in. Let's see.
Oh, you know what? He's vacuuming right now. Should we not interrupt him?
Dr.
For our special guest.
You're exactly right. You need to clean this green room because it's getting kind of stifling in here.
I bet.
Thank you for letting me out a little early here.
Stacey and I are giving you big applause.
Yes, Dr. John.
With the slow clap. I get the slow clap coming out.
It reminds me of
I have a lot to say on this whole thing. And by the way, I want to emphasize, as I always do, a little commentary on the documentary. And this was not a well-made documentary. I agree with both of what you said. It was Stacey, one of the things I'm watching it and I'm going, why are they putting these images of lesbian girls frolicking on the beach? Was that Lee and Ty? But it didn't look like them. It was confusing. And then some of the characters that are introduced so quick, which are these friends, and not really explained really well. And you're exactly right. These friends appeared towards the end, and the documentary almost made it seem like these friends were creating a Coachella festival out of all of her execution day, and they're laughing and reminiscing, but reminiscing not with sadness, kind of laughing and joking in a hotel room about the execution and about Eileen Lee. And it just seemed bizarre without any explanation. But the other thing I have to say to both of you, it really highlights our job here on Pod Candy of giving a little more background and insight into a case like this, because the documentary fell very short on these things. I would have loved to seen more about her childhood, which I'm going to comment on, etc. And this whole bizarreness of Arlene Prowl, is that how you're pronouncing her name, Stacey?
I think so, yeah.
Adopts Lee while she's in prison.
On death row.
On death row, already convicted, and this woman adopts her as a child. That's, to me, it's bizarre.
Right. Eileen's an adult, but she adopts her as her own child.
Bizarre. I can't say how many cases I've been involved in where people adopt, let's say, a preteen or a teen who are delinquents and criminals. And I just shake my head and go, do you realize what you're up for in adopting a person with a history like this? And this Arlene jumps in and adopts Lee it's just craziness. And I think Stacey hit it on the head. There was some concept in this person's mind that she was going to bring her into Jesus and save her soul. But it had I think, the same effect of these people who marry people who are in prison and, these killers. I think she was a fan of killers somehow and just wanted to get close to Lee in this way.
It's a fascination. It's like, people that wanted to marry Dahmer.
My overall comments and instructive comments were, Lee was really a feral person, a person that was, I think, a very important point that was made very, very briefly was she was abandoned at 6 months old by her mother. And the grandmother found her in an attic in squalor and with bugs on her and dirty, and then began to raise her. So we have an individual here, Lee, who is just treated like trash from birth. She was put in an attic. You might as well put her in a garbage can and forget about her. So what happens then to a person like that? Well, a person grows up and becomes trash. She had, and people survive that. People can even, I don't want to say thrive, but have a life after that, especially when these grandparents were purported to be good people and, they didn't abuse her. But her life just gets this horrible bad luck of she's raped by peers in middle school, raped repeatedly. She reports that she was raped by the time she was 17, 30 times. And so we have a person who is not evil, but is just, doesn't know any other life but being like this feral individual, almost animalistic in a way.
Nobody cared about her truth. Nobody cared about the rape. No, you know what I mean? And she was like a person alone on an island, I felt. I don't think she had any chance because of where she came from, who she was. Men, especially white men, hated her. They just wanted her off the earth. I am completely in agreement with you, Dori. I am not a proponent of the death penalty. I don't understand, here's the thing. People do horrible things. And, if somebody did anything, God forbid, to somebody in my family, I might want them to, there's been times when people have gone to death and not been guilty, like the Rosenbergs. Like, I know that's far away from now, but, a long time ago. But I just think it's too iffy. And I also think it's not a punishment for the person as much as it is for I don't know how that is a punishment.
Well,
I don't know. Explain it to me.
Stacey, can I jump in with a true story? Mm-hmm. I evaluated a person on death row some years ago. And my evaluation was the following. This poor guy, who was a young man, he was in his 20s, didn't have the intelligence level. I actually gave him some quick intelligence test to judge his intelligence level. Didn't have the intelligence level to commit the crimes that he was a serial killer, commit the crimes that he was convicted of. They were elaborate. They took planning, which a person who has a challenged intellect, we used to call them retarded, but we don't call them that anymore officially, of low intellect. One of the deficits they have is they can't plan or string events along. And this guy, his killings were elaborate. And the whole thing had an air of him being set up because a couple of the people that he was accused of killing were FBI informants on the drug trade. So I don't want to tell too much about this case. I don't know if I'm allowed to. But here's the deal. I gave an analysis that there's no way that this guy committed these crimes. He doesn't have the brain wherewithal. he was executed.
The Perfect Neighbor on Netflix looks at the real case from Ocala, Florida, involving Ajika A.J. Owens and her neighbor, Susan Lawrence.
The documentary lays out how tensions built over routine issues, complaints about noise, kids playing nearby, and repeated disputes that escalated over time.
Police records, body cam footage, and 911 calls show how many times authorities were contacted before anything violent happened.
And then on June 2nd, 2023, Lawrence fired a shot through her locked front door, killing Owens, a moment caught only through the aftermath on police cameras and witness accounts.
The documentary relies almost entirely on real documentation, letting the footage and official reports show how the situation spiraled.
And ultimately, Lawrence was convicted of manslaughter, a devastating end to a conflict that never should have reached that level.
The documentary examines the warning signs, the conflict's escalation, and the legal consequences that followed.
Really, Stacey, like this is one that you, I think, brought to our attention. I had seen it on Netflix, but it was one of those that I was like, I don't know if I'm going to watch it. And then you mentioned it, and it was really difficult to get through.
It was really difficult to watch. So, for our audience who may or may not have watched The Perfect Neighbor on Netflix, it's a one-off. It's like a 1 hour and a half. And it's extremely detailed because they have actual footage of the events that happened in this little kind of community of homes with a big park in front where kids would go outside and play. And when we're talking about playing, we're saying playing football, wrestling, racing each other, playing hide and go seek, tag, children's games that we all wish our kids would go outside and do now. I mean, if my kids were outside in the park playing football for 3 hours, and they're going to make noise. They're children. But these were children who were not badly behaved, and they weren't, maybe they did a ding dong ditch. I mean, who didn't? But seriously, this woman who lived there Susan would not let it go. She would not let it go.
Yeah, she wouldn't. Okay, so I'm going to say probably something controversial here.
That's fine. That's what we're doing this for.
Yeah, and it's not like, obviously the ending was that the woman.
Wait, you're not going to say that Susan is hot. Okay, sorry.
That would be great. That didn't even cross my mind. But honestly, Stacey, I do not think that. However, that is a good controversial statement.
Sorry.
No, what I was going to say is, I don't have children, but I don't think that the comment that I'm going to make really pertains to that. Mm-hmm. However, I have lived in a multi-unit condo building for a very long time, and this was like freestanding homes, but I would be annoyed if anybody was constantly making noise, constantly antagonizing me, constantly when I am like, okay, this is my home, this is my land, I guess, whatever the property lines were, and they kept crossing that, right? So I'm not saying that I would ever shoot anybody, and that's like disgusting. But I do blame, as I believe you do too, the police. This was a woman who was at her wit's end, the Susan Lawrence. She kept calling and calling. I had neighbors myself who lived below me at a previous residence who were drug addicts, and they were very into sex parties. And for 2.5 years, I lived in hell. I heard them at all hours of the night. They were beating each other up. They were always having parties. And I did not know what to do. I contacted the police. I kept telling my board. Eventually, I sold the home and left, which comes to question why Susan didn't just get out of there. So react to some of this, but these are the things, like, from my personal view, I get Susan's side. I don't condone at all her shooting anybody, but she should have maybe gotten some help from the police so that it didn't escalate to this.
Yeah, there was a lot of okay, I hear you. And I have had experiences in my life where I've lived in condos or units, apartment units, where there's been tons of noise up and below and side to side, and parties late. And my son complains of, there's a frat house next to his dorm and it's loud. And when you're trying to sleep, it really sucks. It's almost as bad as your husband snoring. I don't have a husband. So anyway, I understand her frustration. The cops came. This is the part that I agree with you on about the cops. The cops kept coming and coming. They talked to AJ and all the families with the children that lived in the area, the little, let's call it a cul-de-sac area, where there's a bunch of homes and then a common area with a park across the street, and everybody has this little courtyard. So the thing that's disturbing about it is we're dealing with, not drug addicts. And I'm not negating what you're saying. I agree with you. I've had this experience. Drug addicts and, hookers and fighting, just kids playing. And yes, they should have figured out, maybe compromised and figured out, the kids will play from 1 to 3 and then you'll have a break and they won't be out there after hours screaming and all that stuff. But nothing, everything was so disjointed, and the cops came and they would talk to this side and talk to her and talk to this side. The thing I'm not understanding is, why didn't they recognize that this Susan woman was getting really mad and getting she was a little off, it wasn't a normal woman, not normal. And I don't, she seemed just a little bit unhinged, and the way she was responding and swearing at them and that stuff that just got ugly. So that's the part that I do think the cops failed at.
I'm very curious to hear what the doctor in the green room has to say about a lot of this, because
so am I.
I think he can really shed some light on maybe both perspectives, and just from a psychological side of things. Mm-hmm. So I think he's on the ground right now, crawling around looking for a cookie. Doctor, are you there?
I'm opening the door as we speak, because do you provide any heat in the screen room? It's cold as hell.
No, we have some space heaters. We'll bring them in next time.
Sure,
sorry about that.
I'll tell you that. Besides this topic, which is, exciting and incredible, I always like to start by commenting on the documentary itself, and interesting production, and the sense, as Stacey said, it was like almost exclusively, I think maybe exclusively, the body cams of the police, and then of course the video running in the police station where they're interrogating Susan Lawrence. So very interesting. But again, here's where we come in, because there was no explanations, there was no understanding of what was going on. So here's where Pod Candy comes into our contribution here, because let's talk about what the heck was going on here. And I like Dori's point too, about the noise and the kids and how aggravating it is. I think we've all lived in situations where, somebody else was making noise. And I have to say, also reveal to you both, you may not know this, but I kind of grew up in an area like that in the inner city of Chicago. We played on the streets. It was a predominantly African-American community. And I also had a neighbor like Susan Lawrence. I'm going to change his name. Let's call him Joe. And he was a neighbor that just was obsessed with his grass. And if you could see his grass, you'd joke, because it wasn't grass like you see in a suburban home. There was plotches of bareness. The grass was hideous. But he would tend to his grass, and when we missed the ball, whether it be a baseball, football, soccer ball, and it went on his grass, out of nowhere, this guy would come out and scream at us, and he would even take our balls and confiscate them. But here's the interesting thing, which I think it points out what both of you were talking about. He was a total pain in the ass to us. There's a couple things to say about this, which pertains to the documentary. One is that his tactics, like Susan's, only just made things worse. Because what did we do? We just, when our ball went on this guy's grass, we would kind of jump on the grass or just kick his grass to make it worse, and then stick our tongue out at his house. It's like, what kids do, right? And the kids did pull pranks on her. Like I think this whole thing of leaving the skates or throwing the skates by her door, trying to put the dog in her bed of her truck. They again, but it was exacerbated by Susan's actions. This is what kids do when an adult is poking the bear, so to speak. It was that kids are going to do this. I also agree that the parents probably could have been stronger, as Stacey was saying, with controlling their kids. Leave the lady alone.
Yeah.
This is really getting old.
Yeah. At a certain point, it gets annoying and obnoxious, which I agree. I totally agree with you, Dori. I mean, it's almost like you get this rage when you're being not able to fall asleep. Yeah. And you're not able to concentrate, because I have that in my regular life now. Even
it's not even though the falling asleep, though, too. It is a constant. It was
yeah.
I think I related a little more because it was like a constant, like, antagonizing of somebody. Like, we know this person doesn't want us to be here or anywhere around her, but you know what?
Yep.
We're going to play around with it. So again, I'm not condoning at all what she did, but
any violence, right?
And John, maybe you're the neighbor guy too, with the bad lawn that never wanted you around it. It sounds like these are like very tightly wound people, right, that may be people that do live alone. And again, because I'm the same way. I live alone. I like control of things. So that's why I think I saw it in a way that I did. Again, not condoning the murder, but I understand where Susan Lawrence was coming from. She should have been left alone. She was never going to be happy when people were constantly antagonizing her. So just leave her alone. I have the question about the stand your ground laws. What does that mean? Like, they weren't like going at it with like the mother, AJ, was outside, and Susan thought, which from her perspective, that they were going to come in and hurt her, and she just shot through the closed door. So is that stand your ground? And is it only in Florida? Is this a law I guess it's like a rare law though, right? It's not everywhere.
It's not that rare. There's many.
Are you looking it up, Dori?
I am.
Okay.
It's about half of the United States that have it.
Yeah. And here's what it is that if someone is on your property, you have the right to defend yourself. And it would be self-defense if you feel threatened by somebody who comes onto your property.
Gotcha.
But interestingly enough, audience, what the police drew out of Susan is that she was looking up this law days before this shooting took place. So she knew that she could, do this, attack somebody who is on their property.
So it is premeditated.
Yes.
So it was premeditated. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
So she thought about doing that.
Yeah, that was
Why
key.
does she have a gun?
2 guns. Crazy. Well, that's our our gun laws, and people are fearful. I have a patient in Texas a woman. She was single for a long time. Now she's got a partner, but she carried a gun in her purse all around Texas because she was just fearful of the world. People are afraid. People are afraid in the world, and so Susan had 2 guns, and and wasn't it poignant with the little boy at the night of the shooting? So starts screaming, "This is why guns are bad." I don't know if you heard that. It was very
Oh,
but it was like
everything about that little boy. I just wanted to embrace him. I was like thinking, how could I find out how to give him like college money?
Yeah.
Because I just want him to be, he just seemed so, I don't know. There was something about him that was just so vulnerable and open, and
which brings me to another statement that the Reverend Sharpton mentioned in his eulogy. He said, be fantastic, be wonderful in your life, because this is the legacy of what your mom wanted.
The night that it happened, I fell asleep in my auntie's car, and when I was dreaming, she appeared as an angel.
Don't grow up feeling guilty. Don't say mama wouldn't have died if it wasn't for me. No, mama chose to stand up for you. Because mama knew if she allowed people to degrade you and she not stand up for you, that you'd grow up with a feeling that you were something that could be degraded. She chose you over her. That's what mothers do. Because I want you to go and be everything she wanted you to be.
And so, like you said, I hope that little boy is a success in life and can use this to, motivate himself and to be a success. By the way, on this whole issue of stand your ground, we had an episode of this in our own area, everyone. I don't know if you both heard the story of the cleaning lady who went to the wrong house, and was shot and killed.
I do.
Here we have the story, just to explain to our audience, a Hispanic cleaning lady and her husband, she got the wrong address for a new client of hers for her cleaning service. And she rang the doorbell of an individual, I think that was in northern Indiana, and the homeowner shot her, fell into her husband's arms and died because she rang the doorbell at the wrong address.
So that, because you said like that she was Hispanic, so and with this documentary as well, it was a Black community where a couple of white people were there. Do you think that on Susan's end it was racially motivated? I know that they talked. I know when the parents and the kids kept calling her a Karen, which we all know what that means. Do you guys feel that this was because I really don't know. I really don't know.
I do. Throughout the whole documentary, even from the very beginning of the first calls, the neighbors said that Karen used the N-word vigorously. And
I want to say that I think she was, this is my opinion. So
and her name is Susan, but they kept calling her Karen. So I just wanted to say.
Right. She's a Karen.
Yeah, she's
as opposed
a
to
Karen.
Her name wasn't, right, which is a term for like an annoying white woman. I do think that her sense of entitlement over these people was obvious. I feel that her anger, like if they had been, and I think every person is equal, okay? But if they had been her equals, white people that had a lot of money or something, would she have been as free to complain and do all these things? Or did she feel that she had the entitlement because of her race? Which I don't agree with. I'm just saying, is that a possibility?
The one momentary little glimpse of insight or explanation that the documentary gave us was at the very end in a written, statement at the end saying, and I wrote it down, white people are more likely to be successful in self-defense claims when they use the stand the ground laws to attack a black person. Interesting.
Oh,
Yeesh.
Jesus Christ.
The other stat they wrote was that since the initiation of these stand your ground laws, they've been linked to an increase of from 8 to 11% increase in homicides around the United States.
I think it's a terrible idea. I think it's giving people permission.
Yeah.
And people, like, isn't this country about, uniting? And now we're just shooting people because they look different or they come to our door. They're at the wrong place. How about not opening the door?
Yeah.
How about opening the door crack and saying, if somebody comes to my door and I don't recognize them and I know that there's somebody that's not really supposed to come over here, I don't open the door. I don't just go, let me get my gun and shoot them.
Yeah.
Why does everybody act like a Karen and think everybody's out to get them? Why is that the mentality?
Well, we have a lot of fear mongering in our media. I think we live in an area where this is
Everybody, Dori is nodding for all of the audience who can't see us, which is everybody.
Oh, sorry. Yes, I'm not sleeping. I'm
kidding.
No,
I don't want to be
listening. I'm actively listening.
I just don't want to be the only. Yes, I was worried that I was the only vocal person about this, but I just hate these white entitled people.
Oh no, sometimes I talk a lot on the podcast, so I wanted to really just listen.
You wanted to listen. You wanted to give.
We
All right,
call
so
it in
John,
my field empathic listening, Dori. Thank you.
Yes, I really felt it. Okay, whatever.
I felt your support.
No, I wanted everybody to know you supported me. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, go.
My point that I was getting at is that we live in a world right now where fear mongering is just the elixir for the media. It's like, this is what we gobble up news about, bad things. And we live in the epicenter of that. The Chicago area gets such bad publicity over, it's shooting, the crime ridden. And it's a wonderful place to live. It's a great place to live, and there's so many things to do, and so culturally enriched. And yet, around the country, as I meet with people around the country in my work, you're from Chicago. How is it? Is it safe? And I go, yeah. I mean, it's a great place to visit, etc. And we have like 1 million visitors each year to Chicago, but we love to hear about, how fearful it is. And Susan was a victim of this, probably. It just fueled her anger and her bitterness and the psych issues that she had that led to all this. It's
so where does this stay? So she's in prison. She's in prison for quite a while, right? Like she's
right. And by the way, can I add?
Yeah.
Didn't she look much better?
She was in prison. John, do you have a crush on Susan? Wait,
no.
Susan,
I'm not saying she's Dori
are you saying
hot.
Prison Susan is hot because maybe pre-prison Susan was not to your liking, but prison Susan maybe.
This is reminding me, Dori. This is reminding me of prison Warren Jeffs because John said he thought Warren Jeffs got better looking.
True. Dr. John may have a thing for those in prison.
For inmates.
I wonder if Warren Jeffs and Susan have met. Thanks so much for listening. Stay tuned for our next episode of Pod Candy, where we explore the cult behind the killer, the Andrea Yates story. Our theme music is written and performed by Midnight Current. Check out more of their work on SoundCloud. For more about us and to catch up on every episode of Pod Candy, head over to podcandypodcast.com. You can also find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Support Pod Candy. If you love our podcast, consider donating any amount to buymeacoffee.com/podcandy. Every bit helps us keep creating the true crime, cult, and pop culture stories you can't stop listening to.
So people can buy us a cup of coffee?
Pod Candy!